Welcome to AITSM show. Today we'd be talking about how to make a good automation even better. And we had joined with Mr. Girish Gadage from A2OS and who is working as a tooling architecture head and a rich experience in a lot of areas like pre-sales, tooling architectures, many other things we uncover during the interview. Thanks, Girish, for have you in our show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me and hosting me on this show. Definitely be glad to share my experience with the audience and with the AITSM community.
Right. So in our industry, actually, whenever we are going for automation, so there is a bit of automation in one area, a bit of automation in another area, and likewise, actually starts with some zeal and all, but it fades up when after 6 months or few months, and then people already think what to do, but they are not able to actually improvise their automation and make some value out of it. So what are your thoughts and point of view about this?
So actually, I would start by stating what you exactly said. It's automation is considered as a must-have for all organizations, and it's been driven from the top. Every leader encourages his or her team members in order to do more and more automation in their space.
Right.
But when we say do more and more automation, it should be towards a certain goal. The goal could be to fasten a process, eliminate manual steps, reduce the number of people required to support an operation or a supported ticket, or to be able to introduce more automated way of doing things with a certain other data stores instead of looking it up manually, and to avoid what we call as Excel work.
Correct.
We are masters in Excel. We can do VLOOKUP, we can do pivots and try to gather a lot of information. But that can also be done, that can also be automated, and you could just get the data, the dashboards, and then you could spend your time looking at the data and gathering inferences.
Right.
So that's the idea of where automation should be done.
Yes. I remember the days when actually to compile a report itself, we would have taken almost 1 or 2 days.
And that reminds me of my earlier career days when I was running a performance team in a product company. And we were getting data points, and we used to spend about 15 hours collating the data points and generating a report. So we embarked on this automation process where we did not debate on what technology should be used. We used the technologies on hand, Perl scripting and Microsoft VBA programming. And we were able to automate the generation of the report down to 15 minutes. So you can see 15 hours to 15 minutes. That is the time that we saved, which we could spend on more testing and more use cases. Now, if that is the goal that you keep for your automation, then of course your automation becomes successful. But what I've seen is because somebody is pushing you to do more and more automation, you try to do automation without having a goal in mind. So you try to automate something without thinking on how this automation is going to help me, or even without thinking on an end-to-end process. So if I'm working in a particular team which has a handshake with the other team in order to provide the whole service. Right. Typically, each of these teams automates their stuff or their work individually. Maybe sometimes they use different technologies, and then these two don't tie up. So ultimately, you end up providing the service still manually, and your automation does not really add value to what you have done. So if you look at it from the sake of have you automated things? Yes, I have automated things. Is it going to help you? No, it's not going to help me. Then there is no use of that automation.
Right. True. So what are your experiences with automation, which can be kind of a tips, if there is any tips to actually how to set a better goal for automation or likewise?
So what I've seen is during my career is we tend to focus more on what technology to use for automation. Should we use Ansible? Should we use BSSA? Should we use TCO? Should we use shell scripting? But we do not focus more on the business aspect of what is automation supposed to achieve.
Right.
I think the best way of doing automation is to first define a business objective of what is it that you want to achieve from the automation. Then you look at technologies on hand. Don't go out of the way just because some technology is right now the leading technology in the market. But if you have nobody who knows Python, then doing the automation in Python does not make sense. Because there's nobody to support it. So don't worry on the technology to be used. Worry on the business problem on hand.
Right.
What is the business problem you wish to solve?
Right. So we have to focus on the business objective, and then we need to actually depend on our core capabilities and existing capabilities to move it forward. Right.
Correct. So, for example, I'll give you an example which I started my career way back in 2002. The company was a product company, and at that point of time, it was just starting in India. So we are getting thousands of resumes in our inbox, and sorting those resumes out, weeding out duplicates was taking a lot of time manually. So there was a need to maybe automate that or do it quicker. Now, at that point of time, since we had the expertise using VBA, which is an inbuilt offering given by Microsoft on its Office products, we just chose that technology at that point of time. If you remember, VB scripting was more in vogue. Everybody knew VB scripting, so we used that technology in order to automate it and saved a lot of hours and effort to make things simpler. So that's what I call about use what you have and solve the business problem. Don't worry about should I use C++, should I use Python, should I use R programming, and the buzzwords.
Right. Yeah, that's really useful there. And how about if we are going for, say, automation, and if automation is not providing the value, maybe we have set up our business objectives correctly. We have gone with the tools what we have. However, it is not on track. Like, what could be the reason about it, or how we can actually make it and improve it?
Sure. So, in any automation in the industry, what I talked about earlier was a very specific case of automation where it was only one team that was involved in getting things automated. If you look at your current industry and the way we are supporting our customers, there are multiple teams involved here. For example, if you support, let's say, cloud technology, public cloud technology, or a private cloud technology, you would have somebody who's providing you the tools to support it, like monitoring tools or ITSM tools. Right. You would have somebody who's managing the OS, so OS permissions, OS installation, and then somebody who's managing the network ports and the network ACLs, access control lists. Now, if all of these things don't work together, then your automation will not achieve its goal. So what I've seen in my experience is that the reason that automation does not succeed or it does not get its benefit is not everybody is bought into the idea. Not everybody knows the whole bigger picture of what we are trying to do. For example, if I head the automation team, I will say, okay, network team, open a port. Now the network team is not really sure on why they should open the port. What is it going to open? So they will go through the usual change process of asking 10 or 15 different questions, trying to resist to open a port because it introduces a security issue in their eyes. And then there is a lot of back and forth that happens, and then you miss your goal of getting things automated. Maybe you are trying to save on time. So this goes for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then before you realize it, you are at the end of the quarter and you haven't hit your goal.
Yeah, true. So in order to actually making automation better, is there any role of, like, what are the type of processes which we are automating, or like, say, when we actually come to the ITSM area, IT service management area, so there are a lot of these say getting the software installed, there are service tickets raised, and there are many issues. So what kind of processes do you think which are most easily to automate, or which could be the best to be automated there?
I'll turn the answer in a different way, a little different way. I will answer the question.
Mhm.
But I believe is when you embark on a journey of automation, you should aim at the low hanging fruits, which has the less amount of stakeholders,
Right.
because then you can get things done faster.
Mhm.
You can prove the value, you can achieve a goal, and that then shines up and that gets other stakeholders interested, other people interested to extend this to your area. So, for example, like you talked about rebooting a server. Now, rebooting a server, while it seems that it's a simple task, it is not really a simple task, because rebooting the server may have production application installed on it. When you reboot a server, the production applications can get impacted. So, you have to go through a whole process of getting approvals, taking downtime before you reboot a server, and then this then takes a lot of time, and this workflow or this automation that you do will involve a lot of stakeholders and may not achieve the goal that you want to achieve. As compared to, as for example, if you have let's say Apache server, then sometimes your Apache logs get filled up, or the cache is corrupted, so you need to clean the cache and restart the Apache web server. That's something that can be easily done because it involves less amount of stakeholders, and it will be
Right. And once these early wins or maybe low-hanging fruits are automated, probably those are the kind of we can actually promote to other stakeholders and getting interested in it.
correct. So once you achieve these, it's also very important in automation to be able to demonstrate with figures in terms of time saved or FTE saved, in terms of dollars saved via automation, because those are the statistics that the business is interested in. If you say I'm doing an automation using Ansible, I've written so many loops, I've touched so many servers, that's something that business is not interested in.
True.
The business is interested in is what is in it for me, what is the saving that it's got me in terms of effort or money.
Right, exactly. So the technology may be like maybe high end or something like even the lower end. The thing which matter most is like what is business getting out of. So in automation, when we go along with some say business processes and all, so some business processes are too complex and many a times it has many stops, many stakeholders. So when we are going towards that kind of process automation, what are the things you will look for and make automation a success for that?
Okay. So when there are complex automations, it is similar to doing a complex task. You have to break down those tasks into manageable pieces. So the first thing I would like is, do you know the process end to end? Have you maybe drawn something like on a whiteboard the process end to end, or on a piece of paper on how the process works? What are the paths? What are the approval mechanisms in it? Where is it deadlocked, or where does it take time to pass through? So that you can also set up and when you do automation, you can have the right amount of expectations from that automation on what are the steps to be taken, where will it take time. For example, if you have an approval process to execute or reboot a server or install something, and if the approver does not approve it for 2 days, but you are saying my automation will do it in 2 minutes, then your goals and the actual time it takes does not really match. And if the approver is on leave, you have a mechanism of setting up an alternate approval. Does your automation then recognize that the approval is on leave, and an alternate approval should be sought in order to avoid the waiting time?
Correct. So yeah, it's a really interesting point here. Like you just not make one flow as a automation, but thinking of alternate flows and alternate stops when process will actually break down, or because of some dependencies on other network, other resources and all. What is the alternative path there is? And probably there could be an automation, or maybe it would be handed over to some human like sometimes in conversational IT and conversational RPA, what we do is sometimes it could be handled totally by chatbots, but sometimes if it is bit complex or bit not understandable, then it will move to a person who can actually get the more information and resolve it.
True. One more anecdote that, or one more point that I would like to say in your automation is the customers that you are going to work with, or the stakeholders you are going to work with. The tools that they have put in place are their babies. So if you project your automation as they will replace those tools, then you will run into stiff opposition. What needs to happen is how will the automation work hand in hand with the existing tools and help them to gain efficiencies. If you project your automation in that way, then you will have a better chance of success.
Right. So existing ecosystem of the application should be supported by any tool or any automation package. Otherwise, it will be pretty difficult for even users to actually get through the new system, and they may not be ready for abandoning the old
Correct.
systems. Right. So yeah, that definitely that's true and very valuable. One more thing I would like to ask about is in say robotics process automation and all, we actually go for some say Excel automation or backend API automation or back office automation. However, would that time has come to actually when we should introduce high-end kind of automation, like maybe which interacts with users to actually do the automation rather than maybe like chatbots. So suppose I have to raise a request for server install. I will just open my chatbot and do okay. A new server is needed, and then they will give up the form. I will submit some information, and that server would be ready on VM. Are these latest technologies, and is there time coming up?
I would say yes to that. Automation is not something that should always be in the backend. Today, automation is to work hand in hand with the humans, because at some point of time you would have to take in human input in order to execute the automation. Also, how do you trigger it? If you look at it more and more, if you integrate your automation with more and more with the human on, let's say, what kind of interface should I present to the person based on his what is his mood today, what has his schedule been today. If you can present a better interface which maybe suits him or calms him down, then he'll be able to take a better decision for the questions that you are asking as compared to whether he's in an agitated state of mind. So those kind of how do you get those inputs and then bake that into your automation are becoming more and more important in order for your automation to succeed.
And sometimes back actually whenever these kind of new technologies like artificial intelligence and chatbots are introduced, we may have one additional capability there, like understanding users, like and their past history of requests, where they are coming from, whether they have logged on to particular system or not. They have some information, pre-information about the users. So they may be better say, okay, this is your next step. Say, when I say I am requesting a meeting, so maybe the meeting will be scheduled between you and me, okay, but it will open up. Do you want to schedule a meeting using Zoom?
I'll go to a little further there. Let's say you take your example of setting up a meeting. Now, the automation can look at your calendars and set up, find a common space and then set up a meeting at that space. That's his default, let's say, default behavior. But it can also tell you these are other time slots where you could have the meeting. So that would give the user, you would give the, while it is automated, one of the organizations that I worked, there was a default mandate to have one-on-one with your employees. So they set up an automation in order to schedule one-on-ones. But that automation just used to randomly schedule it on your calendar without looking at whether you had a different meeting, whether you are on holiday, is it Sunday, is the person available or not. And that is then causing a lot of frustration. And what happens is that it's the automation that gets blamed that the automation is not working. It's not the automation that is not working. You haven't really thought about it end to end on how this process should work.
True. Oh yeah, the framing of requirements and framing of business objectives, those are the kind of a critical things to actually go for automation. Can you summarize actually in a few points, like for our audience, that how to actually make a good automation better and even best automation.
The first point is you should be aware of your business outcome. What is the outcome that you want from your automation? In order to achieve that outcome, you need to know what is the business process that you are going to automate. And when I talk about business process, it's end-to-end business process. Third is know what are the points wherein you will need human intervention and the stakeholders involved in the different steps that you will take to automate. And then you start automating you break down the problem and start automating in pieces. But keep it flexible so that you can join the pieces later. So if you're going to distribute it with different teams and you build an inflexible automation, then you won't be able to join it and your endeavor fails. So keep it flexible so that even if it's different teams who are doing the different pieces, you can join them up together. And the last point I would say is always test it continuously. It's a continuous test that needs to happen. Do not wait for the whole big picture to be completed and then run the test, and you'll see 110 failures there, and you will lose heart in that. So always keep on, whenever you develop these small processes, you keep testing them continuously, and then when you join them up or integrate two different processes, keep testing them so that you are sure of what's happening and how the whole process flow works. So that I would say these 5 steps would actually help you to define and get more value from your automation and also present it back to the stakeholders.
Great. Amazing and useful insights we have today with you. And definitely it would help our audience. And while we are concluding our discussion, what is the one question you think I would have asked additionally to whatever been asked? If there is a best
I think the one question that's asked is what has been the highlight in your journey, what has been the highlight of your automation or what's it that has made you successful in the automation area? I would answer that. Yeah, let me answer that question that I asked you. The highlight is that when you keep on automating business processes with the outcome in mind, you get called upon or you get called the automation, let's say, guru, because the automation that you make has helped the business. So you get called upon by the C levels or the CX levels whenever there is any kind of automation to be done to preside over it or to give your thought process into how things should be automated. I think that is, and I had this experience in my previous company where they wanted to automate something at an CEO level, and then the CEO gave me a call saying, why don't you come in the meeting, sit there and guide us on how to do things.
Great. Thanks a lot, Girish. Proud to have you on our show. There are many topics there where we can actually get benefit of your experience. So we will keep coming back to you. And if you have more time, we can book more time with you also. So,
I'll be happy to share my experience in order to further the AITSM community.
Right. Thank you very much. So audience, if you love this conversation, so please share it generously and give us feedback. What are the questions to be asked to our IT pros? And we will keep coming with more and more interesting topics. Watch this space for more. Thanks. Bye-bye.